Hey guys, this is Spartacus here, and welcome back to another video. It has been 5 months since my last video uploaded here on the channel, not including the YouTube short / TikTok I uploaded about a week ago, and you guys should watch that if you haven't already. But other than that YouTube short, I haven't uploaded any videos here on the channel within the last 5 months, meaning I haven't even talked about Black Ops 6 multiplayer yet. And a matter of fact, I haven't even talked about Black Ops 6 in general. There's so much information that's already been out there regarding Black Ops 6, official information I should say, because of course weekend 1 of the multiplayer beta is just about wrapping up, especially at the time of recording this video. And so I figured, now that I've played the beta, let's make a video on this and start going in depth on everything that I've been experiencing with the game so far and my overall impressions on how I'm feeling about BO6's multiplayer. So without further ado, let's get right into this. Of course, the elephant that I have to address in the room is the omnidirectional movement, because this is obviously the biggest game changer that we're seeing within this game's multiplayer compared to previous Call of Duties. And I gotta say, I am loving the omnidirectional movement. I can totally see this being a staple in the Call of Duty franchise moving forward, but I guess that just determines what Infinity Ward wants to do with their next game, because rumors have it that they apparently don't want omnidirectional movement in their games, and that makes a lot of sense considering they like slowing down the gameplay in Call of Duty, where Treyarch, they want to increase the overall pace of the gameplay, and omnidirectional movement definitely does that here in this game. And I have personally had so many moments and experiences where I am diving and able to aim down sights around corners and take out enemies that just feel so satisfying. It's literally a new addition to the game that makes it feel like getting kills in multiplayer is even more satisfying, which is something that I think Call of Duty has desperately needed in a long time. It's just kind of that same monotonous kill type of energy that that adrenaline rush you get for killing enemies and stuff like that. It's always been kind of the same with Call of Duty every year, but with omnidirectional movement, getting a kill by doing some sort of fancy dive or whatever, it's going to feel way more satisfying than previous Call of Duties. I promise you that. And that's definitely the case here with Black Ops 6, and I've definitely been enjoying it. I will say one big complaint that I have with the omnidirectional movement is that while you're laying prone, you can actually look around 360 degrees without any penalties at all, which is pretty convenient, don't get me wrong, and it's something that I don't really complain from that feature itself. I think the biggest complaint I really have with that whole prone system on this omnidirectional movement is that it just seems really awkward to look at players who are alive and they're laying on their back. I guess for me, as someone who's played Warzone in the past and has just been playing Call of Duty for all these years, it just looks like the animation while they're laying on their back, it just kind of seems like they're in a down position, so it makes me think they're not really a threat at all, but they actually are, and they're gonna actually take me out super quickly. But so I don't know, there's something about the animation when you're laying on your back and you're looking around 360 degrees, it's just kind of hard to get used to, I suppose. And so it just looks like there's a downed enemy, and I don't really think that they're a threat at all. And so I don't know, perhaps it's just a personal thing and no one else is experiencing this, but that's something that I can definitely run into some problems while I'm playing the game. If I were to address the biggest issue that I've experienced gameplay-wise within multiplayer, it's most likely the spawns, and I'm sure most people could agree with me on this. For some reason, I do get a lot of deja vu when I talk about the spawn system in Black Ops 6, because my initial impressions of Black Ops 6 multiplayer is almost the exact same I had going into Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer when we were able to play that beta for the first time, because my opinion back then was that the movements, the gunfight, the gameplay feels great, but the spawn system is just utter trash. And I feel like the same thing could be said here within Black Ops 6. And I heard a rumor, so take this with a grain of salt, you guys, or a pinch of salt, whatever you want to, what analogy you want to use. But seriously, take this with a pinch of salt, what I'm about to say here. I heard a rumor that the spawn system we see within Black Ops 6, it's actually directly tied to the game engine itself. And I'm sure, as most of you may already know, Black Ops 6 is using the same engine we had in Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2, you name it, right? It's the same engine that Infinity Ward created in Modern Warfare 2 that we've been seeing pretty much in every Call of Duty since then. And so apparently the spawn system is directly tied with whatever engine is being used. And if that's the case, then we can easily just point our fingers at Infinity Ward. But like I said, it's a rumor, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how true that is because I'm also not a game developer. I don't know the ins and outs of all this stuff. So that is something to take in consideration when thinking about the spawn system in Black Ops 6. Moving on to the Gunsmith / create a class / loadout system, I gotta say they've done a pretty good job with this system. If you've been playing Call of Duty for the last few years, then the loadout system that works in this game is going to be very familiar to you. There are a couple changes that we haven't really seen before in previous titles. With the Gunsmith though, of course you can only get up to 5 attachments on your gun. I am curious if there will be a wild card to equip more attachments. This is something that we saw back in Black Ops Cold War, Treyarch's last Call of Duty game, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a wild card in the create a class system that allows us to have more attachments on our gun, but I guess we'll have to wait and see if that is true or not. I'm not even sure if that's been confirmed or not either, but in any case, the Gunsmith system, it's interesting though, because this time around, it seems like the attachments that we see within the weapons, they don't seem to have many downsides or any at all, which I find to be quite interesting. And I definitely think this is a positive change for Call of Duty because it's really annoying having a gazillion attachments, whether that's like 50 muzzle attachments or like 7 stock attachments, although the stock attachments really aren't that big of a deal. It's usually the muzzle or optics that are usually just bloated onto every weapon, it seems like. But in either case, having the least amount of cons or downsides for these attachments, I think is going to be a huge noticeable change while you're trying to level up a weapon, and as you're starting to add attachments to the gun, you're going to recognize, wow, this gun actually can perform a lot better once I have this attachment on there. And it's great to know that you don't have to think too hard when you're making a class setup using the Gunsmith, and you don't have to think too hard about the trade-offs on what attachments to use. And so I think that's definitely a good positive change in the right direction, and I think Treyarch did a good job with that as of right now. Hopefully there won't be too many overpowered setups because of there's like no downsides or cons to these attachments. Like for example, I'm using the AK-47 right now in the beta, and there's a fire mod on it where you can increase the fire rate, but it doesn't increase the recoil on the gun, or at least that doesn't say that in the menu, and I don't really think it increases the recoil that much in game, but boy does it play well when you have a faster firing AK-47. It's so much fun to use. I should also mention that the level cap in weekend 1 is only at level 20, so there's going to be a lot more things that we can unlock for the loadout system, and I cannot wait to play the full game to see what that's like, or even when they increase the level cap during the second weekend, which I'm assuming they're going to do in the second weekend. I hope they do. But just to kind of wrap things up with the creative class system, I just want to quickly mention the new perk system. You can pretty much select up to 3 perks unless you're using perk greed, which allows you to have 4 perks at a time. But what's interesting about the perk system this time around is if you select up to 3 perks within the same category, and of course if I'm just going off of simplicity purposes here, we have like a blue, red, and a green category of perks, and if you select 3 perks that are in the green category, then you're going to get an additional bonus perk onto that class, which I think is pretty cool. And so there's a couple classes I like running that actually activate that specialty bonus perk that you can achieve by having the 3 of the same perk classes, right? I think that is a very unique feature, and I think that definitely makes sense to have something like that within Call of Duty, and I'm curious to see if throughout the game's life cycle we're going to get a lot more of like mixing and matching perks that will give us additional benefits. I could totally see Treyarch expanding upon this during the game's life cycle, so I'm curious to see how this is going to play out during the full game. The next thing I really want to talk about are the score streaks. We don't have too many of them in the beta. Hopefully, like I said already, they increase the level cap past level 20 so we can use more score streaks. But as of right now, I don't have any complaints about the score streaks. I do think it's interesting that the hardline equivalent perk that we see within this game, I think it's called Ordnance or something. I could be completely wrong about that. Maybe it starts with the letter D and I'm just not thinking of the name right now. But in either case, what's interesting about the hardline equivalent perk that we have in this game, it seems to only affect non-lethal score streaks, which I do find to be quite interesting, and I wonder if that's something that will be changed later on. I will say, although I don't have any complaints about any of the score streaks in this game, probably the biggest complaint I have right now is for the RCXD actually, and it's only because of the controls on how you control the RCXD. It's really not that hard to figure out, especially when using a controller. It's just for some reason they changed the controls on how you use an RCXD. Like, you used to be able to just use the left analog stick on your controller to like make it move left, right, and turn it. You didn't have to use the triggers in order to make it move forward or backwards. And so I don't know. I didn't see anything in the settings to change this either. This is a small little complaint that I have, but it kind of threw me off the first time using an RCXD. But either way, the other kill streaks, even the lethal ones like the attack, helo, and the Hellstorm missile, are pretty fun to use, and I can't wait to use those in the full game, especially on other maps since we've only have a limited selection so far in the beta. Really quickly, I do want to mention the HUD presets that we have as a menu option here within Black Ops 6. I think this is a pretty cool feature to have within Call of Duty, so you can actually customize your HUD displayed the way you want, which is pretty cool. But as of right now, we only have presets within the beta, and I had the impression that we were actually going to have a full customizable HUD option for the full game, but they just didn't give it to us in the beta. And this obviously was going to play a much bigger role for many people who play zombies, right? You know, because the HUD for some reason is such a big deal in zombies, and I can understand why for sure, don't get me wrong, and that's a whole other can of worms that I do not want to necessarily open all the way here within this video. But yes, I do believe we are supposed to get like a fully customizable HUD option, not just presets that we can actually use to our advantage when the full game does come out. They just don't have it in the beta. So I'm hoping that is the case, but it's something I just quickly want to mention here. And then the last thing that we can experience within the beta are sprays, emotes, and the final circle. So when it comes to sprays and emotes, this is something we saw pretty much identically within Black Ops 4. It's like almost like the same system that they had back then, where you have like basically this emote wheel and you can select which emote to use, and apparently in that wheel is also where you can inspect the weapon. It's way better than what they had in Black Ops 4 actually, because in Black Ops 4 the wheel would pop up like in the direct center of your screen, where now it's actually just more of like a small HUD that pops up to the left side of your screen temporarily. So I really like that change there. But what's the point of sprays and emotes? Like, seriously, like, what's the point of having sprays and emotes in Call of Duty? Like, back in Black Ops 4, it was goofy. Fortnite just came out, so it makes sense that Activision wanted to, like, kind of go in the Fortnite direction like every other video game out there. But sprays and emotes don't provide anything to Call of Duty, in my opinion. I would actually argue that the final circle provides a little bit more of I guess, atmosphere to the game than the sprays and emotes do. And that's only because with the final circle, you actually can see who the top players are. And if you're one of those top players, then you can just show off who your operator is. And then I guess whatever emote you want to perform on screen, which is just silly. But either way, I've never been a big fan of the whole final circle thing, just because it takes longer for you to get to the menu and get done with like the after action report essentially. And so I've never really been on board with it, but it's in the game nonetheless. We'll see how much this stuff really bothers me, but I just don't really see a point to it other than maybe for Warzone and to throw in like, I guess, filler items for bundles. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion when it comes to this kind of stuff. All right, that's pretty much going to wrap up everything within this video that I want to talk about within Black Ops 6. I'm going to be 100% real with all of you. Right before the beta came out, I really was not hyped for this, which is crazy to say because usually I'm always hyped to play a beta and try out the next Call of Duty game, right? Like the same thing every single year. And maybe that's just what it is. It's the same thing every single year. So I'm just like so used to it at this point. But I think the big thing that really killed the hype for me is that we got like all the information about multiplayer. I guess if we're only looking at multiplayer here for Black Ops 6, like we had everything pretty much revealed to us before the actual multiplayer reveal trailer. Like by the time the multiplayer reveal trailer came out, it was within the same week I think the beta got released, or maybe a week before the beta got released. But when I watched the multiplayer reveal trailer, I was just kind of like, yeah, there's not a single thing in this trailer that I haven't seen before other than maybe dolphin diving out of water and being able to shoot at the same time. Like that's like the only thing I ever saw in that trailer that was different than what I've seen before. And I found that to be pretty underwhelming. So the marketing for Black Ops 6, I'm going to be honest with you, hasn't been great, which usually is not the case with Treyarch games. And so it makes me a little concerned considering that this game is supposedly supposed to be a 4-year development game, the longest development Call of Duty game to date. And from what I've seen in the beta, I'm like, man, like I feel like this game was not made in 4 years. Like, I mean, the beta does seem pretty polished. Let me put that out there. I feel like the beta is polished enough to the point where it gives me hope that the full game is going to be polished. Like, I don't have any worries, although I am still worried because it happens every year with Call of Duty that the game is going to be polished. Like, at least I don't think it's going to be as bad as like some previous titles that we've seen, like maybe with Modern Warfare 2 or especially with Vanguard, especially with what we see at the launch of Vanguard. But so I don't know if the game, I think the game is going to be fairly polished at launch, which is probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to. I'm just more concerned, how much content will there be other than the classic prestige mode, which I am very thankful is coming back. We're also getting theater mode coming back, which is amazing. Thank goodness they're still giving us theater mode. But how come we don't have a firing range, right? The firing range is something that's convenient, although as bare bones as it is in Modern Warfare 3, at least we have something, right? I love having that quick access of going into a firing range and testing out my gun's new attachments to see how it's performing before I actually head into an actual multiplayer match. It's very convenient, and it's a staple that needs to be in the Call of Duty series that for some reason Treyarch has not put into their games. It's a tiny small thing, but it is very convenient, and I think it could go a long way if Treyarch would implement something like that into their games. Of course, within the full game, we'll also have access to all the score streaks and the full map pool. So maybe the maps we're getting within weekend 1 here aren't the greatest to play on, and maybe the other ones are good. We'll just have to wait and see. But it's like I said, I am not particularly like super hyped for this game, mostly because they just announce everything to us before it comes out. So it's like by the time I play the game, I'm like, oh yeah, I heard about this. This is in the game, like they said. But I'm not really like discovering anything new, right? Even when I play the beta, like I feel like I'm not really discovering anything that's really new. There might be some small things, but nothing that's a huge major jump. So anyway, this video has gone on way too long. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. I very much appreciate it. I don't know what the future of my channel is going to hold or how frequently I want to upload videos, but within the past year and a half, I have moved around like 4 times, and now I'm in a position where I feel really comfortable, and I really hope that I can start busting out more content for you guys, especially since, like we all know, a new Call of Duty is coming out right around the corner. So I really do want to talk more about Black Ops 6 and especially play Zombies mode to see how that turns out. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I shall catch you guys later.